this point. We'll share the recording with everybody who registered for today so folks can revisit this too. Okay, and so I do think it's really helpful. So we are here to talk about just like educator essential resources to support undocumented students. We are in a good place here in California to have all these different resources to support undocumented students. And so like really regardless of where DACA stands in the federal courts or in general what the future of the program has, we are able to highlight just a lot of the different opportunities that exist for undocumented people in general, regardless of the political uncertainty. And we also know that, you know, like not a lot of students now at this point qualify for DACA. So it's also important to kind of highlight some of those opportunities, right, that are not dependent on programs like that. And so I am actually going to pass it over to my co-host. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the wrong slide. This is my wrong slide. I'm going to pass it over to my co-host, Nancy, to get us started on just an overview of our educational resource binder and what kind of educator essential resources it has for folks here today.
Thank you so much, Madeline, and thank you for holding the space. You know, it was really exciting to hear everybody's different resources that they went to and sort of some of the different angles with which they were looking at those pieces. Madeline, can you actually, I don't see that you're sharing, you're not on the slideshow and you're actually on the last slide. So if you could bring us up to the first slide, that would be great. You know, it is really important. Also, I was really excited, you know, listening to Madeline, thinking about some of the mental health resources that are available, as well as thinking about how can we use infographics, right, to help share that information quickly, and some of the spaces that each of you are gathering with. So thank you so much. I'm going to be going through a little bit just in terms of essential educator resources that we have put together in our educational resource binder. We want to make sure that you have the resources that you need, not only about legal pieces, that you can have mental health information that you need, that you can have California DREAM Act information, and all around to be able to have access easily. So, yikes. So we do have our educational resource binder. It's free. It's online. We just updated it. And the 23-24 educational resource binder is available. You can see some of the different sections that we have in it. And we think of this as information that is going to allow you to have the essential educator resources that you need, and also make sure that it's the easiest way to find those resources. So thinking about that, a couple of areas that I think are really important to look at, the educator picks. These are things that we think are just going to help you from all of a bunch of different areas. I'll show you a little bit more of what's in there later. We also have information that can help you think about institutional practices. We have information about the in-state tuition, the California DREAM Act applying to college and scholarships. And that's so helpful to be able to get into the hands of students. But also, we know all of you are really interested in taking that step back and making sure that you're building institutional practices so that you don't have to reach every single student one by one, but that the school is doing a better job in making that happen. And then now with all of this uncertainty, and many students who never had eligibility for DACA, we know that it's really important also for career and income generating opportunities for you to be able to be thinking about that, as well as some of the services that Immigrants Rising offers. And in terms of some of those little promotional materials, we have a lot of flyers that you could find out about our mental health services, our immigration legal intake services, our activity groups, and more. So thinking about how AB 540 does open so many doors, it's so important. But what if a student isn't sure about their eligibility yet for AB 540 or SB 68, or they're not even eligible yet? How can we make sure that they can keep track of their progress? So we have created the AB 540 SB 68 attendance worksheet, and that can help students figure out, like, what is their attendance? Have they gone for their first year? Maybe they went to high school, then maybe the second year they went to their non-credit courses, and the third year they actually got some credit courses, maybe through SB 554 or special admits. You know, we also want to make sure that they can be sure of what their degree and transfer requirements are there, as well as getting sure that they're approved to pay for their resident fees and that they ultimately pay for the, get their information for the California Dream Act. So that's just one, I'm going to go through some little snippets and see how it is that our educational resource binder can actually help you transform roadblocks into opportunities. So maybe you're thinking like, how can I actually highlight the undocumented student experience? What if, I'm having a little bit of a hard time with my mouse, but where can I find good videos that are by and for undocumented students? When you're going to pull people together, how can I make sure that I have good videos and resources at my hands? What movies might help me better understand the undocumented student experience or understand a variety of undocumented student experiences, especially because it's really important that we are elevating undocumented Black students as well as undocumented Asian and Pacific Islander students. And you'll find a lot of those resources here. What if you actually wanted to include videos in your UndocuLA trainings, but you're not sure which ones are most effective? So you can actually take a look at our movies highlighting undocumented experiences, as well as our videos highlighting undocumented experiences, which were curated by Madeline, as well as other undocumented youth and undocumented filmmakers. So definitely encourage you to take a look at this, especially if you're scrolling around being like, wow, I'd really like to see something interesting tonight. These can be great opportunities for you to take a look at those pieces. And then in terms of, if you're like, well, that's good, I need those, but I really need some resources for students. I need I just need to be able to give them one good piece, one good document that's going to help, like I need an all-in-one flyer to let students know, not just about AB 540, but also the California Dream Act and scholarships. What about a scholarship, recognizing, what, scholarship list is great, but it's not enough. Where can I find resources to help students prepare to apply for a scholarship? What about if you're actually, we all know that applying for the DREAM Act is super complicated. So we're thinking about like, how is it that we can guide students effectively through the entire process? And what is it that I can do to help students get connected with undocumented student support beyond my campus? So students maybe want to transfer, or maybe they're trying to grab a course that your school doesn't have. How can they get connected with the undocumented individuals or undocumented support personnel on that campus? And our educational quick guide, our quick guide to college access for undocumented students, has information about in-state tuition. It has information about the California Dream Act and actually the steps to apply. It has information about scholarships and fellowships, our great list, but it also has information about a search chart, or how can students build their scholarship essay. And then the California Campaign for College Opportunity resource map actually tells you about resources for undocumented students at California colleges and universities, both public and private. So we definitely want to highlight that and thinking about those pieces for you. And then helping students access financial aid. I know that some of you that are here today were actually at our California Dream Act boot camp last week. Seems like a long week, and realized this statistic that we shared, that in 2019, 2020, 75% of students who applied for the California Dream Act actually didn't get a Cal Grant. So that means that only 25% of those students did. What if you're like, what, I need to know how to help students get financial aid that they're eligible for? Or what about if you've actually been trying to work with your financial aid office, and maybe they're super excited to do that, or maybe they're not, but you're not sure what to actually recommend for that. So we know that if you share this promising practices for financial aid counselors, there are specific strategies that have been pulled from colleges and universities across the state to be able to increase award rates for the California Dream Act. So definitely encourage you to take a look at that as well. But these are only just a sampling of some of the materials that are there. And so the last one I think that I wanted to share is really just thinking about your campus website. I would definitely encourage all of you to be thinking about, how is my campus website, how is my organization's website showing information that's available for students? And so we are saying, like, what if students can't even find the affidavit easily, or don't know what the eligibility requirements are for AB 540 or SB 68? Last year, or a couple years ago, we were looking, and many of the colleges and universities that we were working with actually didn't have up-to-date information about SB 68. There were still just talking about 3 years of high school. Never mind that the new law of SB 1141 is coming in, and there's going to be changes there too. Thinking about what if you have to, students have to dig and dig and dig to find information to the California DREAM Act, and then all it does is send you to the CSAC website. Is that really the information that students are going to find most helpful? And what about if you don't have a website specifically for undocumented students or a page? How can you get started? Madeline and I have created this Strengthening Your Campus website for undocumented students. It's a guide for colleges and universities, and also can be used by community-based organizations as well, to make sure that there's one place, and we provide you with lots of links and resources to go. And not only that, we give you an actual checklist that you could use to strengthen your campus website for admissions and records, for financial aid, and also for undocumented student services overall. So this is just a small sampling of some of the great pieces that you can find in our binder. And I'm hoping that what you can actually do is download it today if you haven't already. This next slide actually shows you, I'm going to show you what happens how to actually get into the binder. And then I'm going to show you how to get the binder, which is to subscribe it. So I already went in and subscribed to the binder so that I can make sure that I'll get updated information. And then I would just download the PDF. You can scroll through the table of contents and then jump directly to every resource that I mentioned, plus more. And there's an opportunity to share that resource as well as return to the table of contents. So let's see how that goes. So I'm just clicking on the link that I would have gotten through my email. And then I'm hoping this works because I'm using Madeline's screen, but I can actually just scooch down within that website and within that page, and I can see that this is the table of contents that's available there. So you'll see that it starts out with the introduction, the educator picks. Right now, I think a great thing to be using is this note to undocumented students. It actually just says you can still keep going to college in California, even with the current political climate. In-state tuition's available, Cal DREAM Act still in place. And then look, you can just jump right back to the table of contents. Yikes, it's not working that way. Madeline, maybe you could, I'm going to give the screen back to you, and maybe you could help me scroll through it, because I'm having a hard time scrolling with your screen. But if you actually just go back and return to the table of contents, and then you can just scooch down a little bit. It's like, see, oh, I'd like to see about that overview of undocumented students under understanding the undocumented student experience. It'll give you all the information that you have. And at the bottom of that page, it'll also allow you to be able to click here to share this resource. It's going to bring you directly to our website, which we've heard, it's a little bit hard to find information on our website. This is a great way to find it. You can just download that information yourself or share it, and then just click back onto that page, which will bring you straight back to where you were in here. And then that'll allow you also to return to the table of contents. So this is just a quick snippet, right, in terms of how you can jump around. So I definitely encourage you, all of you, to subscribe today. Madeline's just scrolling down. The DREAM Act is there. Lots of information about in-state tuition and residency, applying for college. We're updating those right now. Scholarships, and look at all of these amazing institutional practices to support undocumented students. We also have information about FERPA and student safety, career and income generating information, which is so helpful right now for all students. And then these services, Madeline, maybe just jump on one of those, like maybe the in-state tuition tool or the pre-law. This is actually a flyer. All of those are flyers that you can use to share with your students or put on your website to say, hey, these are free services that are available for you within Immigrants Rising. And it's so much easier to share it. So how do we find it? How do we get access to this drive? If you go to the next page, Madeline, the next slide that we have, it's really easy. All you have to do is just go to immigrantsrising.org/binder. And we'll throw that in the chat, just immigrantsrising.org/binder. And when you do, you're going to subscribe, and you're either able to get a PDF, which you could just use. And we encourage you to just keep that, like maybe highlight that on your computer, have it available. Or if you're like, you know what, I'm old school, I want a binder. I actually have my old printed binder myself because I'm a little bit old school. When I actually used to see students, it was great to show them. Now it's a little bit better to actually just be able to share those, have both options, right? But if you click on that immigrantsrising.org/binder, Madeline, that'll just bring you straight to our binder page. And when you get there, it tells you it's hot off the press. We just got it. And you can just subscribe to get your copy. And that's going to bring you to a page. It's just going to ask you to put your name, your organization, your position, your type of school, what best describes you. And boom, that information is free to you, straight from Immigrants Rising, because we know the importance of information and resources. So thank you for letting me give that little tour. That was only like the smallest amount of the resources that are available. There's over 50 different resources, not only just Immigrants Rising, but others as well. And I'm excited now to hear from some of our panel. Madeline's going to introduce them, but about how people put this to use. And we'd love to hear also later about how all of you do the same.
Great. Thank you so much, Nancy, for giving us a very quick tour of the binder. As you saw when I was scrolling through the table of contents, there's a lot of things on there, so you can honestly spend maybe a couple days just like sifting through all the different information, but really thinking about like what information can you take from this now and share, or look through it yourself and just share with other undocumented support personnel on your campus or your feeder schools or your community. And so we will transition into our promising practice panel now. If you have any other questions or just reflections, hold that. We're going to have time later on today for you to get a chance to kind of like express some of those and just connect with other folks in the Zoom room with us. But we're going to transition to our promising practice panel, where you'll hear from two different practitioners who introduced themselves earlier today, just how they interact with the binder and how they have been encouraging others in their campus, organization, and community to use them. And so I'll ask Paola Mora Paredes from College of San Mateo and Karina Dorado. I think your videos are on. Thank you all for joining us today. You both got a chance to introduce yourself, but maybe just share a little bit of like what kind of work or what kind of support do you give to undocumented students at your campus or organization. So I'll have Paola go first, and then Karina can chime in after that.
Yeah, so hi everyone, again, Paola Mora Paredes, she, her, hers pronouns. I'm at College of San Mateo as a retention specialist with the Multicultural and Dream Center. I've been here for about going into 5 years in June. And so I think it's been really exciting to have been able to set a foundation and create support systems for undocumented students. Started with just me, and then slowly with as the undocu liaison and like the bills through the state have passed and the funding, we've been able to expand and kind of also provide mental health support with the personal counselor. We've created fellowships to be able to support the student leadership and pay students for their work. We've also been able to partner with legal services to provide legal support for our students through the partnership with the California Community Colleges and the California Social Services Department. And slowly we're just trying to like really expand holistic support for our students.
Thank you. So lots of different support services. Karina, what about you? What kind of support do you give to your students in your role?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Karina with the Boys and Girls Club, and like mentioned, I am an educator. I've been in my industry for now close to a decade, 10 years, and I work inside the high schools, so we collaborate with the district, and so I'm in and out of the college centers. I also oversee an after-school program, so I get to be with the community, with the parents. I get to do this work till 8 p.m. On Saturdays, 9 to 1, and so some of the work that I do when it comes to students is just having them have a plan, and that plan can be anything from the 2-year vocational, out-of-state, in-state, and so I help them every step of the way. I tell them I'm there to catch you, and I mostly work with our most vulnerable population. My personal goal is to work with those that need us most. And in this case, it ends up being our AB 540, our dreamers. And so as a dreamer myself, I like to relate. I mirror myself and a lot of the students that I serve. We currently have a 99% graduation rate. 99% is going to college. They're getting that financial aid. we do become their educated parents, and we tell them, you know, we get it, I've been there, and we get on the phone call, we call financial aid, we're their advocate, and that's just some of the work that I do. Very passionate. And I'm able to talk to parents and include them and tell them, you know, you too are part of the journey. When your son, daughter is at Berkeley and they're homesick, you're gonna really feel it. And I like to educate them as much as I can, both language, and provide some of these resources to them. I host parent meetings and I tell them you're part of the journey. And so that's some of the work that I'm doing. And just thank you for including me and having me be part of this.
Great, thank you so much, Karina. Right, and our space is for colleges and universities for the most part, but we do recognize that college journey starts before people actually get to college and start at that high school level. And how do we also kind of call in, partner with these different college access organizations, right, like the Boys and Girls Club, to support undocumented through a pretty confusing time, as we all know, especially with today's political climate. And so I'll kind of turn it over to the binder, right? You two have been big users of the binder over the last couple of years. As Nancy mentioned, this is I don't even know what number edition of the binder this is, but it's been going on it's been updated for the last couple of years. And so I'm curious for both of you, like, what are your favorite resources or like resource highlights for you in the binder? And then I'll turn it over to Paula to answer first, and then Karina.
Yeah, I think for me, something I didn't mention is apart from providing direct services, I do provide one-on-one support for students. And I think a lot of it is with the matriculation process, whether it's supporting them through applying to school or just the financial aid and residency pieces. And I think for me, the biggest ones have been the worksheets around the in-state and like calculating qualification through SB 68 and AB 540. And a lot of it is not just like to be able to provide a visual for the students, but sometimes I think that even there's a lot of transitions when it comes to our admissions and records folks. So sometimes they're not understanding of what could be a year. Does it have to be within the one academic year, right?
Jesus, how are you? I'm good, man. How are you?
From
you.
I've had to use that to provide the visual for the students, but also as sometimes we just use it as like a second sheet to provide with the AB 540 forms, and it's helpful to kind of break down the information to the students, but also when it gets complicated to help out the admissions and records folks to see those visuals.
Great, thank you. Yeah, the AB 540 requirements, right, has been expanding over the last couple of years. We did just get SB 1141 too, right? So how can we make sure that the requirements are understandable to students, but also to the staff members who's going to be supporting our students too, right? And with the transition that happens in those departments that could be common, we got to make sure that folks that are receiving our students are able to convey that information to them as they come in. And then Karina, are you able to answer the question next? See, maybe you might have needed to step off. Maybe there was a reason for Karina stepping off for a minute. So I actually will turn it back to you, Paula, just about, we love hearing how educators themselves personally use the binder, but I'm wondering if you, how have you gotten others on your campus, or even just the different organizations or feeder schools that you work with to use the binder, and also kind of publicize some of the resources that we have on there?
Yeah, so I think something that gets really hard when working at that I've noticed is that because we do have staff now, like everything when it comes to undocumented students, they come to us for. And so I think when it comes to like our trainings and things like that, for us, it's really important to provide tools for other folks to use so that they're not just kind of coming to us to kind of solve or kind of like support them through the processes. So a lot of it is sharing like that. I think we talked about the tool that is like the automated, like it's the worksheet, but it's automated on your website. That's been really helpful to share out, especially when I have like I'm in different department meetings or in different division meetings sometimes, and I think with the changing policy, like political climate, I think there's always like, oh, what are the updates now? And so sometimes it's easier to just point like, hey, for you to keep, like, it's also really important for you as an ally or as an accomplice to do your own education. And so we share these tools for them to also be up, like kept up on, or like even the subscription page of being like, hey, after our meeting, please subscribe to this, like, and so that they can also get the tools on their own and they're not just depending on us to kind of facilitate those news or those new tools. So I think it's been a lot easier with our staff and the folks who are more up to date when trying to support undocumented students. There's a lot of allies who are who try to support, and sometimes it's more of like, hey, use this and like don't create more work for us kind of thing. So I think that's kind of been a lot easier. I think initially it was harder, but in being able to have more rapport with folks as I've been here longer, I think that's also really helped to be able to have like those trusting relationships where they're like, okay, like you, like, yeah, we'll listen to you kind of thing.
Great. Yeah, thank you for sharing that too, right? I think it does, we do also hope that having this binder in the hands of folks who are not maybe just the Dream Center coordinator or the folks directly working in the programs can help build that bigger institutional support for undocumented students. So anywhere your students do go on your campus, in your organization, there's at least some help and some knowledge that those folks are able to hold and share with their students too.
Yeah. Oh, no, and I was gonna add, I also like, I think the parts where it's like the flyers pieces, I think sometimes too, I just print a bunch out and have them in our center. And if folks like, or if I go to meetings, take a couple and just hand them out. Because I think sometimes people just want things to put up in their, like in their offices as well.
Yeah, yes, I think that's a really great way to also just publicize and signal to students that there are support, there are services for them, even just beyond their campus, right? And that, this person is an undocu ally and you can ask them questions and things like that too. So thank you for sharing that. And then Karina, I see that you're back. No worries if you need to step away. I know we're all still in the workday today. But yeah, I'll turn it back to you to kind of ask, like, what are your favorite resources from the binder?
On the binder, I think every part from the start to the end, I love the stats. I love how relevant it is, whether in high school, college, adult, it's all ages. I love the graduate component, the health, mental health component, and just the different types of legislation. As educator, I think it's very important that we all really try to wrap our head around the legislation and how it's currently changing. It's always changing, and I love the description. Great tool for educators, really knowing the difference. And I think when working with this population, it's very, very important that we know the difference between legislation. DACA, DREAM Act is not the same. AB 540 is not the same. It's not a one shoe fits all. And so I love the narratives, the articles, the movies. If you're an educator in high school and just want to throw in a movie rather than playing just a Disney movie, you can educate them. And even the videos, so you really can have a lot of fun with it. Easy read. There's a lot of great just content that it's easy to navigate to. And for a long time, I always wanted a binder like this because I knew all this knowledge was great, but I needed it all in one condensed where I can print it, highlight it. Even in spaces where you're with your colleagues, you can, just casually take out an article, share an article, and it's real data, the research, and it's just the stats more than anything. What helps me most, selling this information to our parents, our family, our students who sometimes doubt themselves. I show them, look who's graduating, look who's actually going on to some form of higher education. You too can be part of that stat, and let's change those numbers. Let's bring them back up. And from AB 540 to Cal Grant, who's getting it. One of the ones I use most is the Cal Grant. Like, look at how much money is just being left on the table, and we do all that we can, so we make them part of that. And my most favorite, the narratives, I think it's very relevant. And just how accessible it is, access to citizenship, access to protection, and how it just gives confidence to anyone. Literally reading this binder, and it gives some form of relief as well. As the more I read it, the more I see it, the more confident I feel with going into these spaces and having these uncomfortable conversations with some of my own colleagues sometimes.
Great. Yeah, thank you for that too. I think, you know, as we saw with the table of contents, right, there is like a lot of different support available, or there's a lot of different like components of the support for undocumented students in the binder. Thank you, Karina, for all that you shared too. I think some of these are going to be really great sound bites we can share in social media to more promote the binder. But I do really like your point of using this with parents and just students as an empowerment tool. Because most often we do hear the, you know, just the very negative narrative and helplessness that undocumented immigrants have in this country. But I think this binder is a good conversation starter on, you know, how that's not true, that there's opportunities, there's pathways to education for undocumented folks here. And here's like all of these resources, all of these stats to kind of help back that up for me. And so I do want to start wrapping us up in our panel and just have like a final question to you both, just around what advice do you have for other campuses, for other organizations, for high schools, for example, to better incorporate or to more incorporate this binder in their regular everyday kind of work. Karina, can I call on you first to answer that?
I think we should all have a copy in our office, ready, accessible, and just highlighted. I'd like to do the stickies, know where things are at, since it's so much great. And so I'd say let's print it and let's have it in our office and accessible for all. I personally print it myself. I think it's worth it, and there's really great information on there. So I'm for the printing for this time.
Great, thank you. Yeah, nothing also beats like a paper copy too. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, Paula?
Yeah, I think similarly, having a copy, whether it's printed or electronic, has been really helpful. And I think a lot of it is like sometimes for me, I get questions around, oh, how do we do this? How do we, and a lot of times, sometimes, like for example, recently we just had like, how do we create work opportunities for students, right? And having these questions, I'm like, well, we're probably not the first people to do it, right? So like I turn back to the binder and there's always like, it feels like there's the answers are there, or if not, like there's people to connect to be able to do that. And I think that just becomes a lot easier in practice. Whenever I have a question, I'm like, oh, let me turn to the binder and see if there's best practices.
And if I may add, we don't know it all, and so we want to ensure and to the population we're serving that we're just as human as them, and we want to, I call it the Bible, we want to have these resources accessible so that they know, they see the stats, they know it's a real research, and I tell them, you know, I don't know it all. And they're like, well, it seems like you do. I'm like, well, if you read the binder, you too would be as knowledgeable. So I love learning, and I think this is a great way to continue learning as an educator, and it keeps you on your feet, it keeps you on your toes, and just really pushes you to take it to the next level.
Great. Yeah, that's a really great quote also, just an ending for, right? Like, and a great like selling point for the binder, like you too can be an expert, or at least know as much as I do, by having a resource like this at your fingertips. So I really appreciate all that we can probably keep talking a little bit longer, but really appreciate all that you both shared. Thank you for the work that you just do on your campus, but making sure that others on your campus too, like your colleagues, other educators, parents, for example, know about, are like empowered also and have this information, so that everybody is, you know, kind of like a team and is there to be able to guide our undocumented students through college. And I'll also call on folks in the room to also do like hearts or chat emojis or things like that, to just appreciate both Paula and Karina for sharing space with us today too. Yeah, and then I see Nancy has also thrown, you know, just again the link to the binder on the chat. We do. I know you might have already access to the PDF if you are a subscriber, but we really do encourage folks to ask their colleagues to actually sign up to subscribe the binder. Nancy and our team here at Immigrants Rising work really hard to update this every year. So that also, the subscription is also a way for you to like know when the new version comes out, and we can send that to you too when that new version hits. Before we transition into just hopefully folks have like a lot of questions, reflections, things like that. Before we transition into that, Nancy, any words you also want to share just about the panel and some of the points brought up?
I mean, my heart is full listening to people talk about how they use the binder, how they find the binder helpful. You know, it really was my goal, Karina, that when we created all these resources to be able to have them in one place. And when I used to be on a college campus where I would talk to people, it would be so helpful to just kind of like pull through it and be like, oh, this one, or you could just pull it out and make a copy for somebody else. I do think now with this digital age, it's really helpful also, you know, for those that just want to be able to have it and be like point and click and get the information that they need. That's a great way too. And I do agree. It's really important for us to be able to say that we don't know the answer to everything. You know, like I've been doing this work for many years, as many as you have, and I don't know the answer to everything. We're trying to find out that information. And so I think that's really important to model that for other people, like you said, Karina, and also to be able to say, I don't know, but let's find out together. Let's check this out. And we do all we can to make sure that that information is accurate. We also would love not only for you to have those binders in your hand, but how can you put some of those information and resources onto your website? And like you were saying, Paola, sharing that with colleagues on your campus. And we were super excited to meet the Boys and Girls Club team. Their whole entire team came to our California boot camp last week. And also shout out to Bakersfield College, who traveled many miles to come to that as well. There's lots of peeps there too. But just to see that interest, that commitment, that willingness to say, you know, we're going to get the information that we need, and we're going to make sure that we get that into the hands of our students. So thank you so much to all of you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Okay, with that, we gave you a lot of information. We want you to take a minute to just reflect, ask any questions, share what you got out of today's panel. We're going to put you in breakout groups, and we actually do have these guiding questions for you all. Let me pull that up in the screen, and then let me throw that in the chat as well. And we'll give folks about, let me throw this in the chat too. We'll give folks, I think we have like maybe 12 minutes or so for people to just check in with each other in the breakout groups, meet each other, and potentially answer just some of these questions around what resources did you see today or you heard about today could you use to address some of the challenges your campus is facing, what resonated with you from the panel, and what will you take back to your campus. And so I think Nancy will have set up those breakout rooms for us, right? Okay. So
we're good to go.
Okay, we can open those up and we'll call folks back in when we are done. I think I see everyone. Okay, there. I think I see everyone back. Welcome back. I hope folks were able to have a good conversation with the people in the room. I am wondering what folks were able to kind of cover in the room. Can I have a couple of volunteers to share what they talked about? You can just unmute yourself. Jose, yeah, I see your hands up.
All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. Jose here at Long Beach City College. I got the pleasure of working with Lizette. She's over at Las Positas College, and it was really exciting that she's in the financial aid side, kind of doing a lot of the outreach. And right now, she is like the point person on her campus, answering questions and helping support undocumented students. What's really exciting is that they're literally are getting started. They're going to be hiring a new coordinator to help support Dream Services. So we talked a lot about making. I mean, the fact that she's already doing that work is amazing, and how they're going to be working closely and collaborating, which is really nice. So just kind of sharing best practices, recognizing that they may not be where they want to be now, but they will eventually, and tapping into resources, connecting with others will help them get there. So it was good connecting and meeting with Lizette.
Great, thank you so much, Jose. Rosa, I see your hands up.
Yeah, I shared the space with Alma from Sonoma State, which is another sister on the CSU, sister campus. And so we talk about, I think the binder is a great resource to have on our Dream Center. I will definitely be using it. We also exchange ideas. She does a social coffee time. And it's almost similar like the one we do. We do a community gatherings every other Monday, and we do it virtually because we do that event to tell the students that they can come and just vent, and they will have a counselor from the from CAPS, the psychological center. And so if the counselors see that the student might need additional support, she might suggest, hey, you want to schedule a meeting individually to meet with one of our counselors. And so she does it in person. We do it virtually because we find out it's a lot of times students don't want to show their face. And so we haven't tried it in person, even before the pandemic, but we're gonna, eventually I like to try it in person to see how it works.
Great, thank you for sharing that. And there are some great mental health tools also in the binder, like a little, what do you call those? Like a fill-in kind of tool that you can also share with your students to just help process, if they're having a bad day, potentially use that as an activity, or use that to facilitate it like a check-in activity with students too, whether virtually or in person, and however you're holding this space. So thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Christina?
Thank you. Yeah, I was reflecting with Nancy in regards to being intentional in regards to sharing the binder and who you share the binder with. Just to be honest, not everyone is for undocumented students. So just being careful about who we share this information with, even though we want to support all of our students. In addition to the intentionality, like making sure that special programs that support Black student success or our API-DA students, specifically in their programs, that they have this information too. We've discovered for sure that our Black undocumented students, for example, are all a part of the Umoja program. So the Umoja program, even if they don't have all the information, they do have that resource for students. And lastly, if you have student clubs, especially like an Ideas Club or Undocumented Student Club, to make sure that they have it too, because for some reason, students listen to other students. I don't know what it is, but the information just seems to be more believable when it's coming from other students, and they figure stuff out. Like they have a great mind to figure things out. So that's all.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christina. I think that's a really great point, right? The intentionality of who you do share the binder to, like not just with folks who are like coming to your Undocu Ally trainings, for example, but I think the point you made about like making sure these other identity supporting centers on campus, so the Black resource centers, API resource centers, queer resource centers have this information too. There is a really great guides on the binder around supporting undocumented Black students and documented API students. So also can help open up conversations if those conversations haven't started on your campus yet. And I really like the point too around student clubs, because it could be really nerve-wracking to come out to an educator, right? It might be easier to be like, oh, this student, I will talk more to this student, and I'll talk more to this club. So how do we also make sure that our student club, like officers, people are aware of some of these resources as well. Yeah, thank you. And I think with, oh, Nancy, I see your hands.
I just wanted to add another thing that came up in our conversation was how somebody that you're working with on campus might really benefit from the binder, but somebody might just benefit from one or two resources that you can easily access in the binder. So could you send that mental health worksheet over to your CAPS or your counseling services? Could you send that promising financial aid practices for financial aid counselors zip, like send that over to them? Maybe the students want to know more about those movies and the guides. So I think it can be really helpful. Or if you're just like, hey, you might not be ready for the binder, but here's the top 10 ways to support undocumented students, or here's the quick guide to college access. So use it both as a full resource that everybody might want, or the pick and play in terms of who you think might be able to best use it. And Christine and I were also talking about how, it used to be, she's really good at navigating our website. So she just went around to the website all the time. But with that new amazing work that our comms team did to make that table of contents, just like to jump to the table of contents and jump back and share that resource and jump back, means that could be just like this one-stop shop for you and for other peeps to be able to get everything that you need, or many things that you need, not everything, right? There's so much more, but a lot of things that you need right at hand.
Great. Yeah, that's a really good point too, Nancy, right? The binder is many, many pages, many different resources. And so if how can we also like put it in like digestible little bits, if that is kind of like where the person we're sharing the binder is at, like a pick and choose type of thing. And so I think this part of the conversation is a really good transition. It's kind of just some next steps we want to leave you with, and making sure that you not only subscribe to the binder after this meeting if you have not already, but that you're also just sharing it to other folks in your campus and community. Can you see my screen around the next steps? Okay. Yeah, and so just some of the next steps, again, if you have not already, just make sure you are subscribed. So that link that immigrantsrising.org/binder that Nancy can throw again in the chat, make sure you are already subscribed to that and you're calling on others to subscribe to it as well, so that you are able to receive the latest update when we update it again for the next school year. We do have this really great binder flyer that's part of the binder that you can use to promote it to your different colleagues, partners, educators, parents, right, at your different campuses, and even your organization. And we do call on folks to also like share this during UndocuAlly trainings as like that one-stop resource that people can get all of the different information with. If you have a task force at your college, or if you have feeder schools that you're closely working with, or just organizations like the Boys and Girls Club that you're closely working with, we recommend you share it with them as well. And then if you are, training new staff members, new student staff members, or even like if you're working closely with a student club on your campus, this might be a really good resource to also share with them, or pick different resources to share with them to kind of increase their awareness of the different support that's available to undocumented students. And we do also want to kind of hear what you got out of today's Promising Practice Roundtable. So we're gonna do this quick Mentimeter, and you can do this by either going on your phone, or if you have a different browser open on your screen, just go to menti.com, and then the code is 59039566. We can throw that in the chat. Their codes have gotten a little bit longer, and then it'll take you to a page where we just want to we want you to rank how you agree, or if you agree with these statements here. And I'll give folks a minute to do that. See if I can actually open it. I can also open the Mentimeter. Let me do that. Okay, again, the code's up on screen if you haven't done it. It looks like 5 folks have been able to do it. Good, okay, so I see a lot of strong agrees for all of the statements, but we really do hope folks were able to just gain a really quick overview of this latest edition of our binder. you got some new resources to better guide your undocumented students through higher education, and you've kind of like expanded or started thinking about just the different ways you can call on or equip or just activate more undocumented allies in your campus and community. So thank you all for participating in that too. Maybe I'll do one more minute to do it. Great. Okay. And then Nancy also just threw the binder flyer in the chat. So feel free to grab that, but we'll share everything with folks who registered to today's meeting too. Okay, so let me just kind of pull us up in our last couple of slides. Really big appreciation to everybody who is able to stay until this very last time, and to our panelists, both Karina and Paula, for just talking about not only the great, amazing work that they're doing at their own campuses, but just the way that they're calling on, like informing other educators, informing folks in their community about the different resources available to the undocumented community. And we really also appreciate everybody for participating in the breakout rooms, and hope that you got to connect with somebody there and exchange informations if possible. But I just, before we officially close out, I do want to share just our information on our next Promising Practice Roundtable. Again, we do these meetings every second Thursday of each month, 9:30 to 11 a.m. at the same time. That falls on November 10th of next month, and we're actually going to be presenting on our intro to entrepreneurship lesson plan. We have this really great lesson plan to help guide educators and practitioners on how to host their own entrepreneurship workshop. We have done a couple of that in Immigrants Rising, but we also want to make sure that you feel empowered and prepared to kind of host your own. So we're going to be doing that next month. I think Nancy threw the link in the chat, right? Yeah, through the link in the chat. Can throw the link in the chat so folks can register, but we'll also forward that to everybody who has signed up for today. And then I do want to give the contact information for everybody who presented today, including our amazing panelists. And since we have some time too, I do want to just close out with one word from everybody to just share kind of like what they're taking from the space here today. And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to do the threes again if we're able to do that, and call on Jose, Richard, and Lizette to get us started.
I think one word that comes to mind, I can think of many, but I'm going to keep it to one, is just growth.
Thank you, Jose.
Resources.
Knowledge.
Great. Alma, Paula, and Rosa.
Sorry, I was trying to register knowledge. I definitely feel I gained a lot of knowledge.
Thank you.
Grateful for the information.
I connection to other colleagues.
And then Karina, Sandra, and Manuel.
Well, I feel very inspired just to see all of us moving in the same direction. So inspired.
Advocacy.
Karina took my word, so I guess I'll say motivated by everyone.
Thank you. Christina, Julissa, and Elisa.
Informed.
Thank you.
The word that comes to my mind is creative, because someone took a lot of creativity to create this binder.
Great, thank you. A lot of that's on Nancy. Thank you.
And the word for me, it's knowledge.
Knowledge, great. And then I'll call on Julio. Luz, are you able to use your mic? If not, you can put it in the chat again.
I think I could be able, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you can get it started if you want.
Okay, I feel united.
Thank you.
I feel empowered.
Thank you. And then Karina, Alejandro, and Joara.
supported.
Go ahead and go.
Oh, sorry. I heard supported from Karina. Yes. Okay. Supported. Alejandro?
Same word as Julio, empowered.
Empowered. Great.
Supported.
Great. Okay. And then Nancy will close us out. I will close us out, but Nancy, go ahead with your last word.
I'm going to steal a few words and just be like filled with love. Like we created this binder so that people could have the resources that they need. And it just really makes me happy to see that people are able to use it.
And then I'll close this out with community, just because there is a community there's a community of undocumented folks, but there's also a community of undocumented allies who make sure that undocumented students are able to make it in today's world. So thank you all so much for sharing space with us today. We'll follow up with all the different information that we gave. Last appreciations to our panelists, Paula and Karina, for sharing space with us. And we can't wait to see you all and reconnect with you all again next month. So have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.